Now it's a great pleasure to invite Ms. Jessica J. Kim, President of Florida International College. She will deliver a keynote speech titled Korean and American Investment for New Socio-Technology Innovation, Frontierism. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Jessica J. Kim onto the stage.
Hi, good morning. I stand here just humbled in the greatness of everyone who's presented, who's attended, the participants, the university. Just thank you so much for this honor. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. So just a little background about me. I think I'm a little bit out of caliber with everyone who spoke before me. My name is Jessica Kim. I am currently the president of Florida International College, located in Florida, of course. I am married with 5 kids. I think I have a picture of my family here. I just like to put that out there because everybody gets really surprised when I talk about my kids. But going back a little bit, I was actually born in South Korea, in Seoul. And I went to the US when I was 4 years old. So this slide is a little bit washed out, but it had a picture of, Korea as my first home, and then US, Florida as my second home. I was 4 years old when we moved to the US. And I remember my grandfather talking to my aunt and uncle, and he was talking about how in the US, the sky is so much lower. And I was like, I'm 4 years old. What does that mean? Why is the sky lower? And he said, 하늘이 되게 낮다, right? And I was like, what does that mean? I was a little scared as we got on the airplane at Gimpo Airport and we landed in JFK. And New York was so different, right? The people, the smell, the sound, everything about New York was very different. But that wasn't our final destination. We had to switch planes at JFK and we flew to Miami, Florida. So when I started my new life in Miami, a place where it's known for its Latin cultures, very heavily influenced by the Hispanic community. 70% of the population was Latin, Hispanic. There was Spanish music everywhere, Spanish foods. But not many Asians. So I was always the only Asian girl or child in the schools that we were in Miami. And when I was about 8 years old, my parents decided to move to Palm Beach, Florida. So Palm Beach was a culture shock to me. In my young age, I thought Miami was America, with the Latin music and the Cuban sandwiches. But when we moved to Palm Beach, which is about 2.5 hours north of Miami, it was actually very, very different. It was an affluent neighborhood. If you know, former President Donald Trump, he has his residences in Palm Beach. So I had friends who had yachts, right? So for dinner, when they go out for dinner with the family, they would go on their yacht. They would park on an intercoastal restaurant where they had a dock for families. Instead of driving their car, they would ride their boats in. Very, very different. And I had to kind of adjust to that. After all my middle school years in Palm Beach County, my parents, out of the blue, decided to move to New Jersey. Again, a huge, huge culture shock. So we moved to a place called Fort Lee, New Jersey. And Fort Lee is, if you know your New York metropolitan area, it's just across the George Washington Bridge from Manhattan. And Fort Lee is 70% Asian. So I go from an environment where I'm the only Black-haired Asian girl in an entire school to Fort Lee, where 90% of the students in Fort Lee High School at the time were Korean. Complete culture shock, right? So I look like them. I don't stand out anymore. But even there, I still stood out because of the way I spoke, right? The way I spoke English, my diction, my gestures, my body language. The Korean American students at the high school will tell me, "You're too white." And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? I've wanted to be white my entire life, and now I'm here and they say that I'm too white. But it was a transformative year for me. We only stayed there 1 year. My parents hated snow, so we moved back to Florida. But that 1 year was a time of transformation just within me. I became very proud of my culture, being Korean American. I became very proud and happy of being Korean, being able to speak the language and the influences that we had. I tell you a little bit about our background about my background, because I wanted to touch upon the Korean diaspora. And I ask you if that term, diaspora, is something that you're familiar with, right? It comes from an ancient Greek word meaning to scatter about. And that's exactly what the people of the diaspora do. They scatter from their homeland, from Korea, to go to different places. But they don't just go, they bring their culture with them to the places they go. And that's what the Korean diaspora has done. The first wave of immigration into the US was in the early 1900s from Korea. A lot of the immigrants arrived in Hawaii to work as laborers. During the Japanese invasion, that time when there was a lot of prosecution and a lot of people moved to the US or went to study in the US. And we see that in the 1976, after the Korean War, Korea were the largest number of immigrants that that moved to US after Mexico and Philippines. According to the 2019 data, 2,546,982 number of Korean Americans residing in the US. It sounds like a lot, right? But it's actually less than 1% of the US population. It's 0.56%. But that less than 1% is making huge waves, huge changes in America, but also throughout the world right now. My point is that the Korean diaspora is not a large number, but the influence of the Korean culture and innovation have grown exponentially with the times. The world knows Korea as an enormous, technologically advanced country. In the past 50 years, we've made so much strides. Massive investments made in infrastructure, human resource development, education, and R&D have built a very, very unique innovation system in Korea. There's no doubt that Korea is a technology giant, and we've been hearing about that today too. In fact, in 2021, Bloomberg listed Korea as the #1 in Bloomberg Innovation Index. Singapore and Sweden followed, and US didn't even make top 10. So perhaps more significantly though, we've seen that Korea is also a world leader in spreading our culture. I think I may be right when I say that we're the only nation who has the Ministry of Culture with a staggering budget and with the purpose of boosting economic growth through exporting culture. When I was young, my classmates in elementary school, middle school would always say, "Where's Korea? Where are you from?" They all know China, but not Korea. And I remember feeling a little bit ashamed by that. But right now, like my teenage girls, right? Thank you to BTS, have become an amazing, popular, students at their school. They are friends who are white, Black, Hispanic, are all wanting to learn about Korea, learn the language. They follow along and sing these songs that even I can't sing. And it's become a driving force in the culture. And it's amazing for me to see just how much that has happened and such strategic steps that took place for that to happen. I talk about this because Korea not only exports technology, it exports culture, right? The food and the music, the movies, what that is, and to be cool now to be Korean. And I think our next steps are to really bring that Korean innovation, the innovation of not only making products, but exporting culture, but now exporting innovation, especially to US, where we're seeing a decline in that. I understand that Seoul National University is the only university that has a major specifically for smart cities. The Smart City Global Convergence Program in master's degrees and PhD levels. This is amazing that the university and Dr. Hwang had the forward-thinking passion and the vision to create this major within the university when most of the world did not know what a smart city was. To be here on the Tihan campus, to actually be in the space, brings so much pride and joy for me. And to see how the digital technologies and data are being used to connect, protect, and enhance the lives of citizens, of students, and really creating a city ecosystem, a smart city ecosystem here in Siheung. As an educator myself, I am inspired by the passion and drive of the university to embark on a road that was never traveled. And I invite this opportunity to work together and collaborate in bringing that innovation, that Korean spirit into US and across the world, and to strengthen the ties and the alliance between our nations through the innovation. Let the Korean diaspora scatter, spread, and change the world through innovation and hope. Thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful remarks.